Thank you, Mr. Minister, and we will meet you today later on one of the panel discussions. And in a short moment, we will be back with the very first keynote of the day. So be prepared. So, ladies and gentlemen, after the welcoming words, we are now ready to start the summit with our very first keynote of the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Inc. Leonhard Birbaum, the CEO and Chairman of the Board of Management at E.ON. He will share his insights on the pressing importance of making the world sustainable before it's too late. Hello, Doctor. Can you hear us?
Absolutely, I can.
Okay, so we hear you. So now the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. I'm honored to be here among the esteemed guests that you have today and to speak after the minister. It's actually just 4 weeks ago that I've taken over my position as a CEO of E.ON, one of the largest energy companies in Europe. And it's a great honor. But it's also an obligation. And you will see in a second why I think it is actually a big obligation. We are here at the Energy Tech Summit, and it's actually an exciting combination. First, energy. Energy is the sector, is the best sector to work in if you really want to make a difference in the world. Our modern societies cannot work without energy. Our modern societies completely depend on our work being successful in supplying energy. And whether our societies, our modern societies, can find a way into a sustainable future, fighting climate change, will depend again on the work that we do in this sector. And it's actually not a work that we have to do sometime down the road. It's a work which we have to do today. And this is why I chose the title of the presentation. We are the last generation of innovators who can really create a sustainable world. And without us, there won't be anyone. So that's energy. But actually, our success will depend on the large-scale deployment of new technologies and the full digitization of everything that we do. So it's energy and tech. And this is really why I believe it's a generation of innovators that really do this stuff differently that has to create a sustainable world. So what are the implications of what I just said? First, actually, let me share 3 core beliefs. We are looking at decades, and I'm really emphasizing decades of growth in our industry. It's actually a growth that we have not seen in our industry in the last decades. The second one is sustainability needs to be at the core of everything we do. You need to think about this If the work that you do is not sustainable, probably soon you will be out of work. And the third thing is, it will be innovation that will continue to drive the energy transition. Even if magically all political support would go away, the energy transition would still move on, maybe at a different speed, but it would still move on because innovation is there and there is the genie is out of the bottle. The transition will continue. But more than anything, we also need to fully digitize our industry. And I'll explore in a second that if your work is not fully digital, sometime in the near-term future, again, probably somebody else will be doing your work. So growth, sustainability, innovation, and in innovation, especially digitization. Let me elaborate a little bit on the three items. Number one, unprecedented growth. Why do I believe in that one? We actually have full sectors moving our direction. Mobility converges with power. Heat becomes electrified, either directly via heat pumps or indirectly via hydrogen. So we need now more of everything. We actually need more power. If we look at the worldwide demand of electricity, it's 20,000 terawatt hours growing to 40,000 terawatt hours. And it depends actually on which scenario you choose. But in any scenario that you can see from any agency, it's much more electricity. In Germany, we assume that actually electricity demand is going to go up from 550 to around 700 terawatt hours over the next years. So we need more power. We need more renewables. I'm very near future, we will have a world where the demand for sustainable power by customers outstrips the available demand that we have in the market. We actually need more infrastructure because we don't have the infrastructure to actually cope with that change. To the grid, every electric vehicle is a house. So if Germany adds 10 million cars, electric cars in the next 10 years, we are adding 10 million one-family houses to the grid. And we need to make sure that the infrastructure can cope with that. And the same is true on the renewable side. It's actually the distribution grid where this all happens. Distribution is where e-mobility happens. Distribution is where demand-side response happens. The distribution is where efficiency happens. Distribution is where e-mobility and the heating transition actually happen. So we need more of everything, unprecedented growth. Second, sustainability needs to be at the core of everything we do. I just said it. Why? Only if you work and invest sustainably will you probably get the political and the societal support that you need to be successful. Even if you work, only if you work and invest sustainably can you build the communities which will be essential for your success. Only if you work and invest sustainably can you avoid to have stranded assets down the road. So actually sustainability, it's good business. That sounds a bit bad. So, are you just doing sustainability because it's good business? Actually, I think it sounds great because if it's good business, it will happen no matter what. I can give you also one example. The EU, as a result of all of that and of its political ambition, is actually coming up with the EU taxonomy. And you have all seen the delegated acts that were published last week. Now, these delegated acts define what are sustainable investments. We at E.ON already in March have actually aligned our full bond framework, our green bond framework, with the EU taxonomy, and we have come out with a fully aligned framework, which allows us now to tap into capital markets, emitting green bonds and being actually the largest green bond emitter in Germany and probably one of the largest in Europe. And that gives us additional opportunities to finance our operations. So sustainable business is actually good business, and sustainability needs to be at the heart of your thinking. Third, innovation and especially digitization. So innovation will drive on the energy transition. I predict that in just a few years, we will actually see the levelized cost of electricity of new built renewables being able to compete with the cost of existing fossil stations. And that means that renewables will be added even without support because it just makes economic sense. Now, obviously, that raises numerous questions to the specialists, but it just means innovation cannot be stopped. But we will actually enter into a world which is much more complex than what we have today, because a renewable energy system is, as a matter of fact, a more complex system. The past was easy. We had large stations which were actually feeding into the transmission grid, were transported and then distributed. We had no need to measure the flow and the status of the system at any point in time. We had maximum reserves, and actually reliability of the systems, especially in Western Europe, was actually very, very good. But now that is going to change. If we have to actually not steer only 100 power stations which actually feed the system, but millions of renewables which are feeding in, if we have, and actually they're feeding in on all levels of the system, on the low voltage, medium voltage, high voltage, and if at the same time we actually have to steer smart meters, millions of smart meters which provide us data, and at the same time we have to steer millions of cars which want to charge, that actually just means we are getting into a system where we have many more actors that are actually bringing in completely new patterns, where actually local challenges in the system will arise at any point in time, and we will have a very volatile system which we just need to control, and that we will need to do fully digital. Our processes, IT systems, and structures, organizational structures, are not set up to cope with this more complex world going forward. So what we need to build is a fully digital new operating system that actually can manage this one. Now, how can we do that? Well, I see three keys to unlock that. One is we actually need to think how we can apply innovation at scale. Innovation itself is worthless. In our system, in our sector, only innovation at scale really matters. We often have actually great technological ideas and innovations, but they're worthless if they don't get translated by entrepreneurs into something that we as an industry can deploy at scale. And the ability actually, but I'm optimistic about that, because the ability, we have a great example right now, the ability to actually deploy at scale is just shown by the development of the vaccines on COVID-19, which we're witnessing these months. Something that even a few years ago would have been completely impossible now is possible, and I predict the same will be true for the energy industry. But if you engage in the sector, you're either thinking in real scale deployment or you're not going to be part of the solution. Second, digitization needs to be a way of thinking, a way of life. It's not a support function on the sidelines. Either you really think everything in a digital way and you don't do just what you did in the past more efficiently using digital tools, but you do it differently because you have different options, or you're just going to be out of it. And third is we need to think much more in terms of partnerships, and actually in terms of partnerships on very different levels. We need actually partnerships between international partners, international players. For example, we need to think about building up supply chains for hydrogen right now, which we can only do if we do it across the continent, at least across the European continent, maybe even beyond that. We need to think about partnerships to really nurture technology, startups between established players, combinations between established players and new startups. And we need to think about more partnerships with customers, because customers become players themselves. So only if we think about partnership as an essential part of our business model, and partnership on all levels, will we be probably successful. So it's really an exciting time. As you've seen, this is the industry to be in. Here we can really make a difference. it's actually a great industry to be in at this point in time, because there is so much growth, which actually means opportunities, but it's also a challenge. We need to change the way we think, the way we act, the way we organize ourselves, the way we partner, the way we innovate, the speed at which we deploy new technologies. And this is the journey that we have embarked upon as E.ON, because we are one of the largest distribution system operators in Europe, and we are actually challenged by all the developments that I've just explained already for years. And we are actually absolutely determined to be part of the solution. I invite you all to join us on that journey, so that indeed, in a generation to come, they will look back at us and say, not they were the last generation, but they will say they have been the generation that really changed the energy sector. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doctor. Thank you for your interesting speech. Yeah, we live really interesting times when you said that 10 million cars in one country and attached to the grid. It could happen that half of it could be attached at the same time. So it's going to be even challenging for the power suppliers as well. Yeah.
Yes, but challenges are opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I rather have it this way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doctor, once again. We wish you the very best of luck, and we are moving forward after